Hey folks, so we're here with the next installment on the vlog, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to go to this place called the Valley of Despair. So let's take a look. Okay, so we're going to go to the Valley of Despair today. If you're in for that ride, let's see what we can do. I think ultimately I came up with this concept, just this idea that I think there's a couple of situations or a couple different levels where as photographers we get to this point of really creative self-doubt and uncertainty around what we're producing and how we're performing compared to how we would like to be, where our levels of photography are in terms of either a technical standpoint or a creative standpoint. Does it feel fulfilling or not? And I think I'd really propose that there are kind of two different levels to this type of self-doubt or despair. I think there's kind of a macro level or a higher level self-doubt and kind of a micro level self-doubt. Let's take a look at this kind of micro level of the Valley of Despair, and we're going to pop into the computer and I'll just walk you through some of my thoughts and my process around that and how I got myself out of the valley. Boom! Suddenly, thanks to the magic of technology, we're inside the computer now. I know that's pretty mind-blowing. I actually had some folks ask me after the last one, how was I doing that? I guess it's, yeah, no real big secret. There's lots of options out there on the market, and I'm just personally using Camtasia. Just really kicking the tires on that and learning how to use it, as vlogging and all this stuff is new to me too, so I'm just excited to be learning about some of this stuff. But anyways, let's just take a look at my little example here about the micro world or the micro level of the Valley of Despair. And I've got this photo shoot here I'd just like to walk us through. And so the Canadian men's and women's Slo-Pitch softball championship last year in Whitehorse was a cool assignment for me. I was quite happy to land that gig, but still there were a number of factors that made it something to be a little bit, nerve-wracking just heading into that. I hadn't shot a ton of softball before, to be honest. I had a lot of experience shooting sports in the past, but not a lot of softball, and certainly not on that kind of stage. So what I did is I went out 1 month ahead of time and checked out what was called the Dust Ball tournament. It's actually the Yukon Championship for Slow-Pitch softball too. So this really helped me get a feel for the venue, a feel for the field, and perhaps more importantly, a feel for some of the equipment that I was using. I was really looking forward to seeing what the new Nikon 200-500, or new to me Nikon 200-500, how that would perform as a sports lens. Had a lot of questions about reach. Do I need 500 in softball? Is that overkill? Would I be fine with just a regular 70-200 or something like that? And also I was using my Nikon D810 for the first time in a real sports photography type of situation, and I'd really been concerned about the D810 to begin with, about whether its maximum frames per second and the continuous shooting mode would be sufficient. And I think that ranges, hopefully I'm not wrong here, but I think it ranges between 5 and 7 frames per second, depending on whether you're in full frame or DX, or you've got a grip on as well too, that'll take you up another frame per second. So I was out here a little bit a month ahead of time before the big show and just kicking things around. And this is literally the first shot that I took out of that Dust Ball tournament. Great, this is with the 2-5. Yeah, I've got reach, I can see across the field. This is from the far end of the diamond, shooting at this first baseman. But other than that, reach is one thing, but understanding what's going on, light, this is really just a test shot. Nothing's been done with it. And yeah, interesting side light here, but in terms of any type of a sports shot or a sports action shot, there's many ways in which that's just pure garbage. We've got Buddy back here enjoying a nice beverage, pretty distracting bleachers, and really not a clean image at all. So going back to that D810, it does about 5 frames per second, depending on how you set it up. And here's another example where I'm quite happy with the reach that the 2-5 gives me. I'm getting an outfielder here, nicely, a nice close crop on the outfielder, 5 frames per second as she fields the ball. But let's just take a look at what 5 frames per second gives you. So I'm just being brutally honest here, garbage, you can't see the ball. You can see the ball, she's mid-throw, but it's a heck of an awkward point in the throw. So that's maybe, that would have been the closest in the sequence of being a keeper, but garbage. The ball is on its way, she's off balance, not really liking that. It's not particularly compelling, garbage. And finally, the ball is out of the frame. So that's 5 frames per second there. Yeah, I've got great reach, I've got a nice clean background, it's a sports play that she's making. In theory, this could be a suitable image, but junk. On to the next. Let's keep learning. So here I'm trying to think about getting that ideal sports shot where you've got, in baseball or softball, you've got the ball on the bat, and just trying to get the rhythm as well. Because again, with that 5 frames per second, you're not really spraying and praying like you might if you had 10 or 11 or 12 frames per second, that some of these really, some other bodies can crank out. And so here I'm kind of a long ways off. I've got, the ball and the batter taking a swing at it, but it doesn't really tell the story that you'd like about somebody hitting the ball. Finally, again, here 1-2, where I've got, pretty much ball on bat. That's kind of as close as you're going to get. I was quite happy with that in terms of timing. If you've got great extension, we've got the catcher, we've got a little bit more filled bleachers here, a little bit more of a story. That's great. Although with this one in particular, it's kind of maybe hard to notice, but I've kind of back focused here, unfortunately. So that's another challenge with the equipment too. So you can see that he looks reasonably in focus, his logo is reasonably in focus, but it's pretty apparent right away that even just a few feet behind him, that fence and the stands and the bleachers are more in focus. So that was a whoops, missed focus on that one. Let's talk about individual players. Again, we've got some great reach with that 2-5. So I was quite happy with this. We got better light, we got better sharpness, we got better background, but nothing's going on. This is a great shot of that individual maybe, but it's not a sports shot. It's not telling much of a story about the game or the tournament. This is kind of where I was a little bit happier. This is with that, again, this is that before the big show. This is the Dust Ball tournament a month before the national championship. And here we've got 2 runners in motion, and I think it really does tell a story here where you can see the base behind there, that this guy has just rounded the base, or he's just come off second base, and somebody had been on first and trying to make their way behind as well too. And I like that you've got the ball and the fielders kind of working in the background. It adds some tension and some dynamic part of the story going on in that image. Now let's just jump fast forward here. We're 1 month later at the actual championship. I'm a little bit more comfortable and feeling more confident with the equipment that I had with me. So capturing some more of that specific moments at the base. Really trying to mix it up here as well too. Reach is one thing, but there's a lot of different ways to lens or to frame your sports action shots. So here I had switched out to using a 50mm. So just learning about how that 50 frames that shot differently. You don't always just want to reach in and be as tight as possible and everything. This shot, again, kind of happy with it. Unfortunately, if you're, this is uncropped or anything and I've just missed his fingers, those are just exiting the frame there on the left, so that's something that would bug me. That might be something I'd include in a series of selects, but it would certainly not be a winner or anything by that stretch of the imagination for me. Again, more work with a 50 1.8, and I was taking some time to get comfortable near the dugout on both sides, the first base and third base lines as well too, just to making myself a presence, making myself known to the players. And I really just liked that, being patient and getting comfortable. You don't always want to just walk up to people and start popping the camera in their face, but once you've made yourself a fixture of the scene, or people know that you're there for a reason, that you're there to make them look good, or you're there to get some shots for the paper or a magazine or something like that, you kind of become a fly on the wall after a while. And that's, for me, when you can get your best images. So kind of happy with some of those portraits with the 50 1.8 there. I was really experimenting with the different lenses. And again, this is the 50, just capturing some of the spirit of the games and the cheering for the game, and just how much a part the rest of the team, that's waiting in the dugout and they're cheering, and how much a role that plays in the game of softball. Here I've switched back to the 2-5, again just trying to tell more of the story, some of the intensity, some of the emotion, some of the the tension and excitement that's going on with the tournament when the stakes are a little bit higher. So you can really reach in like that. So I really just enjoyed that flexibility that 2 to 5 has for me. Now, if you think back to, I just like trying to tell the whole story of this tournament, I want to capture the pitchers as well too. That's another part of the equation. Ultimately, that really doesn't tell a whole lot about the game, doesn't tell a whole lot about the tournament or the tension or what's going on. Later in the tournament, I was able to position myself behind home plate and realize, well, okay, you're shooting through a fence. You know, that doesn't have to be the end of the day. If you're shooting through the fence with a wide-angle lens, you're going to get the fence, no matter what kind of aperture you're at, you're going to get the fence in your image, and it's going to be a little bit distracting. But if you shoot with a longer piece of glass, like the 2 to 5, you can kind of make that fence and make the links disappear. So I was, again, talking about a pitcher shot. That's a pitcher shot, but it's boring. Here's a pitcher shot where you've got the stakes. You've got the batter, you've got the umpire, you've got the fielders, you've got the scoreboard. The game's just started. Let's go. Play ball. Again here, taking some time now, getting low behind home plate, behind the fence still. I guess, yeah, it would have been nice. It would have been fun to set up a remote camera too to get some kind of close angles like this. But in the absence of that, you can really still work with what you've got. And this is probably one of my best shots from the tournament with the ball right on the bat. Pretty happy with that one. As well, you just want to tell the story of the tournament, and just like if you're covering an event or if you're a wedding photographer, those detail shots, they count. They tell the story too. Another detail shot, talking about the intensity and the effort there. Even though that's not an action shot, it's kind of a in between the moment, but the detail of the knee pads there really tells a story, I feel. And just, thinking back to the agony and the ecstasy of where I started with taking that first shot and learning about the reach of the 2 to 5 and learning about what garbage lighting is and garbage backgrounds are all about. And the players themselves too had been just giving it all for this championship weekend as well too, and everything was on the line. And a lot of the teams that go the full distance, if you've been in a big tournament like that, you know that by the end, physically things start giving out and we start losing some players. So that's part of the story of the tournament as well too. And then thankfully at the finish line we have some great jubilation shots, and this is kind of the way it feels as a photographer too, that you've made it through the week or you've made it through that tournament, or even if it's an individual game, that you just keep trying things out, repeating, changing your angles, changing your lenses, changing your shutter speed or your aperture to overcome some of the challenges and things that you're facing there. So this was just a heck of a fun tournament to shoot, and I really, really loved it. And again here, the celebration, detail shot celebration with the national champions, and then a group lineup shot there too. So again, this is one example that for me, going a little bit out of my comfort zone, out of my familiarity zone with shooting a national championship Slo-Pitch softball tournament, had new equipment, new lens, new camera, was diving in and just really trying to make sure I could deliver some great images for my client. So that's really the example I want to show you guys. That's the micro level of the Valley of Despair. And let's switch back out. Let's pop out of the computer now and look at that macro level of the Valley of Despair. A few other resources to share with you there too. So the next level is kind of the macro level of the Valley of Despair. And for this one, we're really talking about kind of existentially at a higher level. And I just want to share a couple of resources here. And the top one that comes to mind is not Bart Simpson's Guide to Life, although that has some really great gems in it as well too. Actually, I've got two books here for you, and the first one is incredibly popular. It's called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. So this is not the off-the-shelf segment for the vlog. I just want to point out a couple of quick resources that relate to the challenge I'm talking about today with the Valley of Despair. Pressfield in this book really talks about resistance and that kind of internal resistance and tension and anxiety that sometimes we have as creative folks or as artists. And I just want to read one little segment here talking about resistance and self-doubt. So if you'll bear with me, Pressfield says, self-doubt can be an ally. This is because it serves as an indicator of aspiration. It reflects love of something we dream of doing, and desire, a desire to do that thing. If you find yourself asking yourself and your friends, am I really a writer? Am I really an artist? Or am I really a photographer? Chances are you are. And here's the key part I think about this. The counterfeit innovator is wildly self-confident. The real one is scared to death. So I think that's cool. It's just reassuring to know that that self-doubt and that questioning that we often have for ourselves about how our photography is going, it's just part of the course. That's okay. There is another side to that. And just to highlight the fact that there's another side to that self-doubt, as another resource I like to point out here too, another great book. And this next one is another example like that. It's Austin Kleon's Steal Like an Artist. And I think even the title here really emphasizes something that as creatives quite often, you're seeing what other photographers are doing and you want to try something. You've never done light painting, but you want to get out there and try it, and you're happy with your images, but maybe you're worried that, well, somebody else did that and it's not my own original idea. That's okay. Again, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And that's not talking about copyright infringement, that's not talking about intellectual property infringement. That's saying you acknowledge your inspiration, you acknowledge your mentors and the people that you've looked up to, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to take a few steps along their path as well too. I just want to emphasize here again this example from Cleon, and he's stolen it himself too from, he acknowledges his source here too from Maureen McHugh, who's a friend of his, and that's about the life of a project, or you can think about the life of a career, or the life of a creative career as an artist or as a photographer. And I think I just want to point out there, and maybe I'll pop it up on the screen right now magically, or not. But we've got here what McHugh and Cleon would talk about. Instead of the valley of despair, they're calling that the dark night of the soul. That's maybe a little bit more a little bit more dramatic perhaps. And maybe where you end up isn't exactly the grand aspiration that you had at the start, but the point is there is another side of that dark night of the soul, or that valley of despair. So I hope that helps. That's a couple of resources that I'd highly recommend: The War of Art and Steal Like an Artist. And this is not a sponsorship or a paid thing, and I'm just recommending some resources that have really helped me out and kind of keep them on my shelf and turn to from time to time. Yeah, so I hope that helps. And if you've been enjoying this at all, I would definitely much appreciate any comments, likes, or you could subscribe here or subscribe there. Check out the next stuff that I've got coming up. And so far it's been a great start to the year for me. I'm trying some new things out with the vlog, and I think it's going to evolve as the year goes on. So stay tuned and hope you're along for the ride. Cheers.